Hey, I'm Randy, and this is RPG. In this video, I'll be adding the top, attaching the saw, and building the fence system. Let's get started. I started by cutting a piece of plywood to fit the top. This piece is 48 by 32. Clamped it to the frame and I marked all the hole locations, and then I went around and punched all the holes with an awl and a mallet. Okay, it's actually an old ice pick, but it works the same way. And yes, I made that mallet too. Maybe I'll do another video showing how I made that. I don't know, let's see what kind of response I get about it. Then I drilled all the pilot holes on those marks and screwed down the top with 1 1/4 inch drywall screws. There are 20 screws total to hold the top down. Okay, so I have the frame turned upside down and set on my workbench slash table saw, previous table saw, and now I'm going to position the new saw in here upside down on this side, so that when it's flipped over to the other side, it'll be closer to the left hand side. That's going to give me a lot more room on this side for making wider rip cuts. Okay, so here is the basic frame finished out with the table saw mounted underneath. Right now it's just being held on by 6 1-inch screws with some fender washers going through the aluminum top of the table saw here right into the bottom. Now eventually I'll get around to mounting a cross piece here that goes all the way across, and I can actually use these holes for mounting that across, and then the same thing here. I'll put another piece here and another support brace going over here to further support that. I do have plenty of room here for the handle so that I can raise and lower the blade and use the tilt mechanism as well. The overall height is about 33 inches, which for me, being 5'6", that's pretty darn good. So I'm pretty happy with that. All I want to do now is plug the saw in, raise the blade up through the tabletop to make basically a zero clearance saw cut, and check to make sure that the blade is at least somewhat square to, perpendicular to the front side of the saw. The table saw itself, the blade was not even close to being square with the edge of the table on that side. I was just going to take the table and butt it up against this far piece over here, but it's not even close to being square. That's kind of one of the hazards of using one of these lower cost table saws. However, I think I've pretty much got it. I just made a line perpendicular with here where the saw blade was supposed to go, and pretty much just eyeballed it, and so I'm gonna make a cut and see how square I am to the front of the table. If I'm not that square, that's okay, because when I put when I install the fence system, I'll have enough wiggle room that I can move the actual fence piece around and square it up to make sure that I've got a nice even square fence to the saw blade itself. Okay, so I've got the table saw righted and the casters retracted, so it's sitting firmly on the ground now. I'm going to make that first cut up through the tabletop and find out how square I actually am. Alright, go ahead, give me your best shot about that comment. I'm sure there's plenty out there. How square am I? Alright, first cut. Let's break out the square, see how we are. Pretty good so far. Okay, a little bit off, but like I said, it's probably about, well, hold on, let me get it past that tooth. I'd say it's about a 30-second off here. It's open here and flush here with the front of the top here on just the plywood. So I think about a 30-second. That's pretty darn good. So after that, I put a bunch of wood filler all over the top, since it's just construction grade plywood and it's not all that smooth. The next morning after it all dried, I started on every woodworker's favorite thing to do: sanding. Lots and lots of sanding. I started with the belt sander, and afterwards I switched over to a palm sander to finish it off. This made a hell of a mess. Ugh. And no, I'm not wearing a respirator or any kind of protection, so yeah, go ahead, safety guys. So here it is, basically the completed table saw station. You saw the mounting already. I just finished up building the fence. It's a Biesmeyer style fence. I used the plans from John Heiss. I'll leave the link in the description below. Awesome fence, very easy to build if you take your time and do it right. Couldn't be more happy with this fence system right now. Even without any wax or any kind of finish on the table whatsoever, it still slides very easily all the way down and locks into place, and it's not going anywhere. So again, couldn't be happier with it. Still need to put some finish on it, so I got to get some sanding done first, make it all nice and smooth. Then I'm going to put some finish on it. I'll knock down all these sharp edges on the wood as well, and that's pretty much it. Get some finish on the fence rail as well. So obviously I didn't show the build for the fence. I think John does a pretty good job showing exactly how to build it in his video, along with the rail system as well. But I couldn't be happier with the way this turned out. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and finish up, get some sanding done, put some finish on here, a couple of coats of polyurethane, and then I'll put some finishing wax on top of that, just to make it really, really smooth. I guess the only other thing is that I'm probably going to get questions on the type of plywood that I use. This is cheap construction grade plywood that I got at my local home store here. And the reason that I went with this, yes, I know I should have used like Baltic birch and some good plywood like that, but I wanted to show really that you don't absolutely need to have the best plywood. Sure, I would love to have done this with Baltic birch, and I may wind up doing that again later on, unless I got an actual decent table saw. But for now, it's going to treat me well. It's worked out well on my previous table saw. Pretty much every project that I've done with plywood, I've used just standard construction grade plywood. Yes, there's a little extra work that had to go into it. I put a bunch of filler on here, wood filler, and then I had to sand all that down. Yeah, so it's not the best stuff in the world to work with, but you can work with it, and you can achieve quality results even using subpar cheap plywood. I think it turned out great. The fence system turned out very square. It is almost perfectly square with the blade. Well, that's going to wrap up part 2 of the table saw build. If you like what you saw, give me a thumbs up. In the next video, I'll be cutting miter slots in the top and adding an enclosure around the saw to cut down on the noise, but more specifically for dust collection. So if you want to check that out, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Hope to see you then. Thanks for watching and have a good one.